Mr. Inam Aziz and distinguished guests, thank you for joining us today at the launch of the English version of Stop Press, originally written by Mr. Inam Aziz. The book was originally written in Urdu. The English version of this book has been rendered by Mr. Khalid Hassan, who is one of most prominent and renowned journalists of Pakistan. And Mr. Khalid Hassan in his foreword says, the best journalist of Pakistan was Mr. Inam Aziz. So these two gentlemen, Mr. Khalid Hassan and Mr. Inam Aziz, has produced this best work. It is either the best of the best or the best from the best. Another interesting commonality between these two authors is that both of them started their professional career from Pakistan, and later Mr. Inam Aziz moved to the United Kingdom and Mr. Khalid Hassan moved to the United States, and yet they remained united in friendship. Ladies and gentlemen, this story of Inam Aziz is one of the stories of struggle in which Mr. Inam Aziz throughout searched for truth, to learn the truth and to tell the truth. With this, now I would request the High Commissioner to come and say a few words on about Stop Press and about Mr. Inam Aziz.
I always like because that way you're pitching yourself to all the guests rather than only some of the guests. I'm really delighted to be hosting this event, which is really at the initiative of Khalid Hassan, an old colleague of mine, because I also have spent many years in journalism. So he and I have been fellow travelers in our journalistic journey. And we've of course continued to remain in touch. Khalid Hassan is no stranger to people here. He has spent many years in the United Kingdom. But I think more importantly, he came up with an idea which is to pay tribute to another person who was a very distinguished journalist and who was a trailblazer, who did many things. I did not have the good fortune to know him personally, but I actually went through the book because I remember once Khalid Hassan making the remark that at book launches, the people who usually preside over them have never read the book. And those words haunted me so much that I said, never will I ever either host or attend an event where a book is being talked about and I haven't had the time to read it. At times we're not able to read from cover to cover, but you're able to skip and dip, and you're able to understand basically the gist of what is in that book. But I think today we have the family of Inam Aziz Saab, and we're very pleased that you could join us here. We're very pleased that you're here joining us in our tribute to a distinguished journalist. We've had many functions at this embassy which has helped to either launch new books or to draw attention to an important book by an important person or a British Pakistani. And this is part of those series of events that we continue to have at this mission, because I think if this mission is to belong to the community, it must always connect to the community, and it must always pay tribute to those members of the community who have done so much service to the community. So I see Mr. Inam Aziz's book and his own journey in his lifetime, one of not just service to the media and to journalism, but more importantly, I think, service to our community here. I think most of you would know him through that service, and I know that I have many friends who often don't come to the embassy, like Amraz Hassan, although we keep inviting them. So they will also be saying some words about when they knew Mr. Inam Aziz and how they remember him. But I do want to say that, you know, at book launches you come across books, you may not always agree with what's written in that book. You may not agree with every sentence in that book. You may not agree with some assessments of people in that book. But you always appreciate and acknowledge and admire people for putting their thoughts together. Because it's just so important for us, I think, as a community to have an intellectual profile to contribute to the intellectual development also of our community. So it's in that spirit that I say that, you know, as I went through this book, I enjoyed it immensely because it records his memoirs. And then when the book is translated by somebody like Khalid Hassan, you don't have a choice, you have to read it. Because I think Khalid's wit is his very quintessentially Khalid Hassan. I'm just hoping that when I write my first book in English, he'll translate it into Urdu. So I have to say I had a very selfish motive in hosting this event. I thought after this event I may be able to persuade him that Khalid Hassan Sahab, when I write my first book in English, would you be kind enough to translate this in Urdu? Because I think it would be a great honor if Khalid Hassan was to agree to that. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for also being here in such large numbers. I think your attendance and your presence here attests to the tribute that you wish to pay Mr. Inam Aziz. I think it's so important that all of you did join us here, and Khalid Hassan came all the way across the Atlantic to be here at the launch of this book. So again, thank you, and I'll hand over to the other speakers who will remember Mr. Inam Aziz because they actually knew him. Thank you.